Welcome back. You continue to watch Good Night Qatar. It's our preview show, and now we're turning our attention to the team of the hour, the team of the tournament, at least for a lot of people here who bleed the red and white. And that, of course, is Canada. Their final game, gentlemen, before the World Cup, they took on Japan. That was a 2-1 victory for the Canadians. The pace of that game was so much better. Obviously, we know Bahrain, that was more for the MLS players. And this one, though, sneaky by Lucas Cavallini with the Panenka and the penalty kick to secure that 2-1 victory. But when you looked at that game as a whole, Ollie, how did it affect the way you look at Canada entering the World Cup? What kind of form they're in?
First of all, loved the Panenka from Cavallini. The Fun Police had a bit of an issue with it, but I give me more Lucas Cavallini taking high risks like that in high leverage moments of game.
He scored.
Exactly. It's in the back of the net. What are people complaining about? I think, look, what I was impressed by with this game was, looking at the Japan goal there, Canada did not start well. And you started to wonder if this could be, a bit of a wake-up call type match for them. But the response after that goal, I thought, was very, very good. I thought it was a really strong performance from Canada overall. And it's just another game where I know there was the loss to Uruguay, but I thought they played well in that game as well. Like, you're still waiting for that game to come where it is that step too far for Canada, right? And I think we've all been kind of anticipating it's going to come at some point, whether it was Uruguay, whether it was that Japan game, that, you just finally get to a point where the quality of the opposition, the circumstances that you're playing in at times with injuries and fitness concerns and so on, it's just going to be too much for Canada to overcome. But we haven't really felt that yet. And I think that gives you real confidence going into this group. This team is ready. This team can compete for all the questions that are being asked about, the health of certain players. That there's a foundation that's been laid down here during the course of qualifying, during the course of the last 2 or 3 years, that has got them primed and ready to be at a World Cup. Like, I feel really good about where this team is at in that sense, much more than I did maybe even just a couple of weeks ago with all the questions we were asking about whether they'd have a starting 11 that was healthy and ready to play in a World Cup game.
Yes, I don't think the rest of the world will see this team the way that we do, because that was a second team for Japan. No one's getting overly excited about how you do in a friendly, but I think based upon the result and the way that Canada played, I think it gets people's attention and it gets that hype train going just a little bit more, because the fact also, Eddie, we've seen this team be convincing in terms of their performances over the last 2 years. So this is like, yeah, okay, this team's stepping up in competition and showing very much the same thing, which is an absolute positive.
And obviously when we talk about this team, we're working under the assumption, 100% fit, this is what they can do. But Jordan, we know that's not the case. We did not see Alphonso Davies or Stephen Eustáquio in that game versus Japan. Alphonso has since joined the team. Eustáquio, pulled up in practice the day before. Now, John Herdman's coming out today and saying Milan Borjan is experiencing some sort of abdominal pain. Don't quite know if these are mind games or not, trying to throw off Belgium. But either way, we know there are some banged up players here. We know about, for sure with Alphonso Davies, and we'll get to him in just a moment. But how do injuries, Jordan, affect the way John Herdman approaches either the tournament and that first game against Belgium?
It's huge. I mean, our best player right now is touch and go if he's going to play. I loved hearing him saying that he's ready. I'm ready. I literally had chills. I was holding my baby. I almost threw him to the ground. I was like, oh, okay, he's ready. We got our guy. I was honestly, but if you're looking at Herdman, to answer your question, Andy, we have so much depth, most depth that we've had ever, in my opinion, but we cannot afford to lose 2 or 3 players. It was nice to see us, the build up to the second goal. All players that were subbed on had something to do with it. Marc-Anthony Kaye, Richie Laryea, obviously Cavallini even taking the penalty. We had guys coming off the bench contributing to the squad, but we can't afford to have 3 or 4 guys injured. And as I said before on our show, Eustáquio and Davies Eustáquio being probably our best form player at the moment, and Davies being our X factor and basically carrying the weight of the team on his shoulders in many respects. Those guys have to be playing. And then what happens, it also gives Herdman some options of guys coming off the bench, right? If you lose 2 or 3 players, we basically know the team is going to play. And then the 2 guys coming off the bench rightfully will be impactful, but it's not as impactful as it would be if we had the full arsenal, if we had the full squad.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's talk Alphonso Davies here, Garrett. This is the elephant in the room, because he can say he's ready, but we keep hearing that he's a wee bit behind schedule for that Belgium game. So let me ask you this. Can Canada get a result against Belgium without Davies or without Davies at 100%?
I don't think so. Look, and that's not to discredit Canada because, Tajon Buchanan stepping up, playing a much more attack-minded role, kind of replacing Davies or Junior Hoylett, who I thought was fantastic against Japan. You're still going to have quality in those positions. But let's be honest, Alphonso Davies is at a different level. He just is. He's a player that's been in a world's best 11. He's an absolute X factor in any one of these games. It's just one of these things. We're not sure what John Herdman's thinking right now. We're not sure where he's at because the last time that we were informed, it was that he didn't even start the sprint part of his return to play regimen by last Wednesday. So how ready is he? What is the actual timeline for him to play against Belgium, for him to play against Croatia? We simply do not know the answer to that question. But I'll tell you what, if Alphonso Davies is in the team and the fact that Belgium doesn't know whether they have to prepare for him or not, call it a mind game, call it a tactic, it adds an absolute wrinkle to this game. Alphonso Davies in Canada's team makes him a completely different entity than Alphonso Davies not being in this team. So, look, if Alphonso doesn't play, it's going to be a real uphill struggle for Canada. If he does play, it provides that glimmer of hope that you have that X factor in the team that can provide that one moment that might be the difference between getting a result and, being on the losing end of the equation.
In tournament play, World Cup, Olympics, coaches most definitely look at games, and they know the games where if we don't get points, we need to get at least a point here or a win here. They really do look at those games, and they know which ones. A lot of people may be, what are you talking about? But they know which ones to expect losses in and which ones to expect wins in. If you don't believe me, all you have to do is read Christine St. Clair's book. She says it all about John Herdman when they were going into the Olympics and World Cup. They had each game, their opponent pegged for how many points they thought they would get against them. That's how tournament play works. And the reason why I'm saying this is to preface this next question with it. Ollie, does John Herdman expect a result versus Belgium? Or does he know that Croatia and Morocco are more realistic?
Well, I don't know if anyone can expect a result against Belgium because clearly Canada are massive underdogs, but I certainly don't think this is a game that you say, oh, well, this is just, a freebie and then you go on to the other two. Like, we only have 3 games here. You attack every single one with everything you've got to give yourself a chance of getting out of this group. Now, I do look at this Belgian team and compared to Croatia, I think as well. And I think there's vulnerability there. I don't think we should read too much into the friendly against Egypt, but they did have issues dealing with transitions and counterattacks. There are questions as to who is going to start at the back for Belgium. Will they go with the older guys who maybe lack a bit of mobility, or the younger players who are more athletic but don't have that tournament experience? I think Canada will want to go with it with everything they have at trying to target that. It may not work. They may lose the game convincingly. We know that in other areas, Belgium have overwhelming quality and the most quality Canada is going to face in this group stage outside of Luka Modric. But you have to have a go at Belgium, I think, because they are a team with vulnerabilities. So I certainly don't think there's going to be any element of that with Canada, of looking ahead to the next game and just kind of, not being so eager to get a result in one because there's a weaker opponent coming. You have to make the most of every minute you've got on the pitch at this tournament.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you always go for the win, but when it comes to just approach, you wonder tactically how it ends up looking. Now, Jordan, I had a chance to speak to John Herdman, and when I asked him, does he like the fact that he's facing Belgium right out of the gate? Just like get it out of the way. His response was just laughter. He just laughed at me because, this still is a strong team. And I guess as a player yourself, is it exciting? Is it more exciting or is it more nerve-wracking to face a team that has a guy like, Kevin De Bruyne in it?
It's exciting. Just to echo what the boys are saying as well, I think just getting a result first game is what we want, right? Getting a tie, that's perfect, and just take things the last 2 games. But in terms of playing someone who is, what did you say, Maestro. Sorry. Like Kevin De Bruyne in this position, you want to play a guy like that. You want to say, 20 years, 30 years from now, when you're telling your kids, grandkids, you want to say you played against one of the best midfielders in that time, in that era. But also what happens too, when you play players that maybe aren't at your quality, sometimes many players can drop, right? You're playing a guy that you can easily take a touch around, your play drops, just the tempo drops. But the opposite effect happens as well. When you're playing a player like Kevin De Bruyne, you cannot make mistakes. So it brings out the best in you. Also, dare I say, it's a learning experience as well. Like to say and to see what someone does every weekend and week out for City and what he's done for the past years. You kind of watch him and be like, man, I have to step up my game, but it's amazing to just be here in this atmosphere. So I'm excited for the boys. I am so envious because Howard loved to stick a tackle to Kevin De Bruyne if I could even
I was
catch
going
him.
to say, Jordan, first minute, right?
You have to crack him. Wheels, come on, old fashioned. 30 seconds in, you gotta crack.
Well, the one thing that just stays with me is we've got to hear John Herdman firsthand in these games asking his players to step up and press and get on their man. If they give De Bruyne and these central midfielders time and space, they're on toast because there's an absolute advantage Belgium's attack to Canada's defense. So it starts in the midfield. You need to put pressure on that ball, and then Canada's attackers, I have no doubt they're going to ask questions about that Belgian back line, but then they have the best goalkeeper in the world in Thibaut Courtois. Just one thing, Belgium's 2 losses in recent major competitions, they've lost to the team that's gone on to win that tournament, and their last loss against a team that would be deemed on Canada's level was all the way back in 2016. And I'm taking the Egypt game just yesterday out of the equation, but it was Wales in 2016 at the Euros. I think they've come a long way since then. Do not underestimate this Belgium side. They are flat track bullies against weaker opposition. Canada is in for a real fight in this opening game.